Extension members are a new thing in C# 14, but what are they and why are they valuable? That's what we're going to cover in this video. Now, for most of my training, I work to give an in-depth look at technology so you understand when and why to use something, not just how to use it. But sometimes you just need a quick answer to the question, how do I do this? That's why I created this 10-minute training series. So let's look at this quick demo I have already set up. I want to kind of go over what we have. So I created a person model, really simple, first name, last name, a Boolean if you're married or not, and then an integer for a number of kids you have. I also created two constructors, one that's empty and one that takes in all the properties. So it just makes my life a little easier. Over here, I created a list of person model called people, which has my 5 samples in there. Now, I create a for each loop. And this is all setup work, right? So I create a for each loop like you might do, and I want to say, hey, I want to get the family size, the number of people in the family total. So the number of people starts with the person themselves, and then if they have a spouse, well, that's 2, and then add in also the number of kids they have. So we have 1 for the person themselves, and then we have this if statement, if expression, where we say if they're married, then do 1, otherwise 0 in this place. And so we're going to have 1 plus 1 if they're married, and then also add the number of kids. So for me, Tim, Corey, true, and 2, that means 4 people total. Now, once I have that information, then I want to only print out a console write line if the family size is greater than or equal to 3. So this is just a simple setup. There's no real reason why I might want to do this specifically, but this is a good demo to start from. So let's talk about extension members, not methods, members. And let's start by looking at extension method first to compare. So we're going to call this person extensions. And we'll get rid of the usings up here and make this public static. And you can get the source code for this down below in the description. So what we used to do, or what we still do actually sometimes too, is say public static string full name, and then say this person model P, and then we'd say, I don't know, return, let's do a string interpolation and say P dot first name space P dot last name. Okay, that'd be the full name. We're adding this onto the person model instance. So now over here, we could say, P dot full name instead. Okay, that would be a way to extend the person model object, actually instances of it. So that would allow us to add extra things. So if you don't control the person model, you can still add on to it this way. And this is the extension method. Now I'm going to comment that out because there's a newer way of doing things, and this allows us to have more freedom of how we do things. And that's extension members. So we say extension. What we're going to extend the person model, and we'll call it P. You don't have to give it a name if you're not going to use the instance of it, but we're going to use the instance of it here. So I'm going to say public int family size. And what I'm going to do is this code right here, which actually figures out how big the family is. I'm going to take that. I'm going to create this family size as a property. I'm going to use the arrow function here and just paste in this code. So it's essentially the same as doing a get, and then inside the get's curly braces, returning this. So it just makes it a little simpler. So this is a read-only property that's going to give us back the number, the family size for each person. So this is a property. This is not something we could do before. We only had methods. Now we have properties as well. The difference between a property and a method can be subtle in some ways, but properties are for things where you're not going to see changes inside of the instance. So family size, it's just counting. Now, if you had a setter as well, sure, you could change a value. But when we're reading a property, we expect it to be very quick. We expect it to be not changing things. So when you read date time dot now, you don't expect it to be making changes inside of date time, and you expect it to be very quick. These are things you want from properties, as opposed to methods where things might be changing internally. It might be calling an API or whatever else. So this kind of clues you in that this is just a quick value you can grab. It also allows for some pattern matching and other things that methods can't do. Okay, so we have our property here, which means back over here in our program.cs, we can simplify things a bit. Now, I could just copy and paste this. And in fact, let's do that for now and get rid of this line right here and say if family size, well, we're just going to say p dot family size. If I can find it right. There we go. P dot family size. That's it. So now we have a property we can read from. We can even simplify it a little further by saying, dot where family size is greater than or equal to 3, and then now you have a if statement here. But that's really not about extension methods or members. It's about, just making a simpler for each. Okay, so we've seen how to do members with properties, but we still have the ability to use methods in here as well. So public void display family. That's a weird name, but that's okay. I'm going to do this console write line. This one right here. I'm going to grab this. And it still uses P because it's pulling from here. So now down here, I could say p.displayFamily method. So it's a method now, and that's going to print out the console write line for that. So now you've seen properties and you've seen methods. And the cool thing is that we didn't have to say, this and then give a name every time. We can simplify each of these methods and properties because we're just referencing this up here. And we're putting everything inside of extension so that that all of these things are extension properties and methods that go onto the person model object instance. And I'm saying object instance very clearly and specifically because of the fact, let's create one more. We're going to call this string extensions. And this is something we couldn't do before as well. So we're going to mark this as public static. And if I spell it right, there we go. And I'm going to create an extension for string. Now I'm not going to give it a variable name. I'm just going to say string. I'm going to say public static string create GUID. This is a method, but it's going to attach directly to the string itself, not an instance of string. So I can say return GUID.newGUID.toString. So it creates a new GUID on the string. So why is this valuable? Well, if we come down here and say console write line, I can say string dot what I call that create GUID. So create GUID. Like so. I didn't have to create an empty string. Like I didn't have to say empty string dot create GUID. Because I don't have to create the string first in order to call this. I've put this extension member directly on string itself. So this is, again, something else I couldn't do directly. We always worked off of the instance of the object. So like here, we're working off the instance P to say family size and display family, etc. per instance. Here, I am putting this method directly on the object, so you don't have to instantiate it in order to do work with it. Okay, so that's extension members, where it kind of cleans things up by putting everything inside of extensions. We can do properties now, not just methods, And we can also attach directly to an item instead of attaching to an instance of an item. All right, so that's it. Thanks for watching. And as always, I am Tim Corey.